New day, new goals, let's own it. And in this episode of Leaders Create Leaders, we're at a penthouse and we're gonna be meeting up with the New York real estate mogul himself, Ryan Serhant. You may recognize Ryan from that show, $1 Million Listing, new season coming out this year. He also has his own show called Selling It Like Serhant coming out. But we're gonna get into the backstory of how he became one of the top 5 real estate brokers in this country, with $1.2 billion in real estate right now to sell in one of the wealthiest cities in the world, New York. But he didn't grow up here. So we're gonna get into how did he end up in New York? How did he actually build his brand, right? How did he build his brand online, offline? How did he become one of the top selling brokers? We're gonna go into his traits and lessons on how you can master the art of the deal, the art of the persuasion, art of the sale, and really what it takes to become successful in real estate. So I'm excited. Let's get into the story of none other than the real estate mogul himself, Ryan Serhant. I think so many people see you from the show, $1 Million Listing, but like this is prior to the show, prior to the gram, like you're doing this. Like how does it feel?
The show and the gram are secondary to the actual work. You know, I mean, we're in these apartments all day long. I mean, I'm selling this whole building. My team is downstairs and they're about to start an open house in 15 minutes and they're probably like, oh, what if I have a buyer for PHS? I can't go up there because Ryan's making this little video, right? Like, so they look at me because I cracked the whip with them. But we have $1.1 billion worth of listings actively on the market right now. Probably double that in upcoming inventory. So it's busy, you know, it's busy times. And so the $1 Million Listing is a marketing device for us. And it was an opportunity that came along when I auditioned for it in 2010, and everyone told me not to do it, by far. And it worked out.
You know, that's a struggle that a lot of this generation, they face. They care so much what everyone else thinks and what everyone else, everyone else judges you and the doubt they put on you. But you got to like do what you feel is right. I'm sure that you've learned that throughout your entire life.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up, you know, wanting to be an actor. Like that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to do theater and I wanted to do TV and film. And I grew up outside Boston. I was born in Texas, but grew up outside Boston. And I played every sport known to man. My parents made me play every single sport. And my whole family's in finance, so everyone wanted me to go into finance or become a lawyer. And it just wasn't me. And instead of conforming, I just said, listen, I'm going to graduate college, right? I'll go to school, I'll get my degree, because God forbid, who knows what's going to happen to my life. But then I'm going to go to New York, and I'm going to make it as an actor as best as possible. And then I came to New York, and it was really hard, because they don't teach you in school the business. You know, that's like the biggest issue that I have with like liberal arts schools and Ivy League educations is you learn a lot from books, you learn a lot from craft, and you network a lot. And then you're just like dropped back into the middle of a city and they're like, go make money because you have to pay rent and pay for food. Do you have any idea how expensive bananas are? Like all those things you never think about. And then it's really, really hard. And that's why a lot of people come into the city and then get out. Same thing with real estate. I think it's like 85% of the people who get their real estate license in New York City get out of the business within the first 8 months. Because there's no paycheck and they don't know how to make money. So they understand from real estate school what real estate is, how to sell, but no one ever taught them what the sell actually meant and how to create income so you can pay your fucking rent. So you can pay your bills, so you can work out, so you can go to dinner here and there. And that's what I try to do with my team, right? Is grow a team full of mostly millennials and like teach them the value of the dollar and the value of making money and get them to be, you know, as hardworking as I am.
What are some of the traits that you're infusing into your team in order for them to be great at real estate, at being able to sell real estate?
Oh man, a lot. Because my first day in real estate was the day that Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy in 2008. It was September 15th, which was a bad day for a lot of people. For me, it was my first day in real estate. I had no money to begin with. I lived in Koreatown. I shared a bathroom with a lot of people. I ate a lot of Korean food. And I was just excited to not have to go to auditions that day and not get a part, right? So I'd been dealing with rejection because I graduated college in 2006. So I'd been rejected after rejected after rejected for 2 years, like to my face. You know, when you're trying to act in a city, it's like you're too tall, or you're too this, or you're too that.
How old were you, like around?
I got into real estate in 2008, so I was 24.
24.
Right, yeah. So when I got my real estate license and started renting apartments. And then I just sort of became addicted to it. You know, I thought I was just gonna rent apartments to pay bills and like pay my rent.
So that you can then pursue acting.
Yeah, because if you rent an apartment for $2,000 a month, let's say, if you're a brand new agent, your split with the house is typically 50-50. And if the commission is then 1 month's rent, that's $2,000. If I rented an apartment in a day, I'd then walk home with $1,000 next week, right, when you get paid. It's like, okay. Or I could spend the whole day just sitting in line at Actors Equity auditions or submitting my resume or just spending money to live in the city. I realized as an actor, the harder you work didn't necessarily mean the more successful you'd be, right? But as a real estate agent, the harder you work, the more money you can make and the more income you can make and the more of a splash you can make. And I didn't know what the difference was between a rental building or a condo building or the townhouse or co-ops or multifamily. I had no idea that West Broadway wasn't Broadway. I just thought it was Broadway on the west side. Like I was just very, very, very confused.
Yeah.
And so, you know, but what I learned as an actor in the city was one, never to take rejection personally. And that's what a lot of real estate agents do. They think if someone doesn't take an apartment, they take it personally.
Yeah.
But for me, I was like, the person didn't take the apartment because they don't like my face. Wow. Like they were doing for 2 years. They were taking the apartment because they don't want the apartment. Right. And I learned really, really importantly that you are never above any level of work, right? Because as an actor, you're doing everything. And even when I was young, doing summer jobs, you know, I did contracting and labor working, right? And I was a carpenter's laborer, so I was doing demo and roofing and all that every single summer. And I know now that I work as hard as I do because I never want to do that ever again for the rest of my life. To never delegate, right? You have to take initiative every day. Like when I first got into the real estate business, I didn't know how to sell anything. I didn't know that sales was even like an art form. I didn't know what negotiating actually even was. I didn't realize that when I was 10 years old trying to get an extra Jell-O pudding cup for my mom, even though I was chubby and overweight, that convincing her to give me one was actually me negotiating with my mom. No one was paying me, but it was a negotiation that I was doing. And I realized that I had done that for a long, long time, my whole life. And most of us do. We just don't realize we're doing it. But when I first got into real estate, there was a guy, his name was Ken, from Bed-Stuy in my office. He didn't graduate high school. He had a kid when he was 17, and the reputation was that he had sold drugs, right, heavily until he got into real estate. And every day I would come to the office with no business, trying to figure out, like, what am I going to do? I'd post ads on Craigslist. You know, it's just like, where do I meet people? This business sucks. I don't make any money. And Ken would come in every day with checks, every single day. And he'd have deal files and checks, and he was making money and getting paid. And I remember going out onto the fire escape of our office, which was above Burger Heaven on 49th and Madison, and calling my older brother and saying to him, listen, I don't think this is for me. I think real estate in New York City, you either got to be from New York City, or you got to be like Ken.
Yeah. And you started making these excuses.
Yeah, and like, you know what, I tried it, it's not for me. Maybe I'll come home, my parents were in Colorado then. Maybe I'll paint fence the rest of my life, I don't know. And I was hoping my older brother would like make me feel better, but instead he was like, shut the fuck up, cut the shit. If Ken can do it, who didn't graduate high school, had a kid when he was 17 and sold drugs for a while, then you can do it too. Just go ask him how he does it. Like start asking questions. And so that didn't make me feel any better. But then I went and asked Ken, I was like, hey man, I see you doing deals every day. Like I'm new to this. Can you tell me how you do it?
Was that tough? Like I feel like one thing with our generation too, right? They had the battle with ego.
Yes,
right?
always.
And instead of just like going out and finding the people that are doing it and figure out how they did it. Like ask them, like drop the ego.
Yeah, it was incredibly nerve-wracking. I don't think I did it right when I got off the fire escape. I think it took me a minute. But when I went up to him and I asked him, and he looked at me, and I will never forget it, and he looked at me and he goes, nah man, I ain't telling you shit. Wow. And he walked out.
Wow.
And that's the moment, that was like my turning point in this business where I realized, one, no one's gonna help me, I gotta do this on my own. Even though I continued to ask people how they did it, right? Not everyone was that way to me. And two, I realized why he worked so hard and why he did so well. Because like when he looked at me that way, he was immediately a dog backed up against a wall. And he said, I'm not telling you anything because I have to hustle for my own life, right? And he didn't want to give secrets away, and I completely understand that now. And he had a wall, right? And I tell everyone I talk to all the time, you are not going to be as successful as you potentially could be until you find your wall. Like, what is your wall? His wall was drugs and, you know, in a bad neighborhood and possibly jail or death. That's something I will never be able to understand.
Yeah.
Like, knock on wood, you know what I mean? But what is my wall, right? And my wall for me was never going back to those audition lines ever again, and never being broke in New York City, being declined on my credit card at Food Emporium ever again.
One of the stars of Bravo's $1 Million Listing New York. Please welcome Ryan Serhant.
Ryan Serhant.
Ryan Serhant.
Ryan Serhant.
Ryan Serhant.
Ryan Serhant?
Ryan Serhant.
It's me, Ryan Serhant.
Ryan Serhant.
Ryan Serhant.
Today, I'm here with Ryan Serhant, who's the #1 realtor in New York City.
Hi.
You know, it hits 25 million homes, you know, across the world. But you would think that like he was this like celebrity type that was this top real estate agent in order to get on the show. But actually, he wasn't. He didn't even know if he would make the show, and he was the least experienced real estate broker getting on the show. And the pressure they put on him was, basically, it's reality. If you don't do good, if you don't sell, then you're gonna be cut from the show. So imagine the pressure he had on him to not only be in the spotlight, but also he really does need to make money and become the best real estate broker that he could be. So we're gonna get into this whole story of how the $1 Million Listing was a double-edged sword for Ryan.
I mean, $1 Million Listing was a double-edged sword because they cast at the end of 2010. Actually, they cast for the year of 2010. I got into this business at the end of 2008. So I was still like renting apartments. And they cast that show and put me on it. So immediately there was like a shotgun to my head to be successful, because the last thing I want to do is be a real estate broker who then sucks on TV.
Right.
It would be terrible. No one's going to call me. They're just going to look at me and laugh. And that's kind of the way I looked at it. That NBC Universal, which owned Bravo, you know, so it wasn't just me saying I need to sell this to make money. It wasn't my boss. It wasn't just the seller. It was then NBC saying, if you don't sell this, we're going to put it on TV to 25 million people that you failed. So good luck.
Wow.
They also filmed the whole first season of $1 Million Listing with 4 agents. And they told us from the beginning, we're going to film with all 4 of you, and the one who's the worst will get completely cut out. So good luck. So you think real estate's tough? Talk about TV. Like I was nervous every single day. I lost like 20 pounds from stress. I think that's when I went gray. Because I was like, every day, you know, I was nobody. I was at a firm no one had ever heard from.
Wow.
I was renting apartments, and I was on a show with like 3 of the biggest brokers in the city. One whose dad runs Element, right? One, Frederick, is 10 years older than I am. And the other person who's on the show had been doing this forever. And then there was me. I was like, what the shit? And every day they were doing huge things, and I was just trying to like make things happen. But I think from that like pressure. Spastic pressure, that whole first season is where all my energy came from, because I was so terrified every single day that I was going to get fired again. That's really what kind of catapulted me into the work mode that I have today. In the beginning of 2011, I was selling my first building. I'd gotten hired about a year and a half before to sell my first building, which is like over there somewhere in the financial district. It's called 99 John Street.
Okay.
And the developer was very, very tough. And $1 Million Listing, I had gotten cast at the end of 2010. And then I was just really busy trying to make the show and sell that building. And they wanted me to be there all day, every day. And then out of the blue, they just fired me. And so I lost a whole building. And that was really that was like my income, right? We were selling a couple apartments a week. I learned everything I know about how to negotiate deals from being in that building, because it was like 15 people a day, walking them through instead of trying to meet people on the street.
Right.
And they straight up cold turkey fired me. And that I immediately thought, like, my career's over. I've got this TV show. We're filming in this building. What the hell am I going to do?
Wow.
Bravo's going to fire me, right? My life is over. And I have no other business, right? That was the beginning of 2011, and I had to reset and completely start over. And it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have the team I have of 62 people. I wouldn't have the second show that's coming out on Bravo. I wouldn't have the book. I wouldn't have the app. I wouldn't have anything, because I was so comfortable in what I was doing there.
Right.
That being fired was a much quicker way than quitting, because eventually I would have to quit, right? But I would probably still be there today. I would honestly probably still be there today. And that is a scarier thought than however terrified I was the moment that I was let go.
Right.
Even though it was awful. Like, I was like, holy shit, how am I gonna pay for rent? What am I gonna do? But that became my second wall. I had to immediately figure out, okay, now I gotta go be a regular real estate broker. I'm gonna do the actual work. So I went back to the corner of 49th and Madison, where I'd started meeting people in Starbucks again, started asking pregnant women if they needed more space, started finding foreigners on the street with shopping bags, giving them my card saying, if you want a pied-à-terre here so you can come and shop more, come, I'll be your broker. And most people thought I was fucking weird and crazy. Yeah. And people like would run away, but I got like 3 people. And from those 3, that turned into 6. And then 1 listing turned into an open house where I met this one other guy who wanted to sell his place at 3 Hanover Square. And you just slowly build and build and build. But what I learned from all that is you have to manage relationships.
And if you were talking to like someone young out there that whether it's real estate or anything else, because it's, you know, I think it relates to any product, like what would be a challenge that you think that they should, or something that they should do to break that comfort zone and get out there and start actually trying to get used to being able to build these relationships and get people to feel that assurance?
You have to have a long-term game plan. Like I don't know if we talked about it before, but like 85% of the real estate agents who get into the business are out of the business by the, let's say, end of the first year. That's because everyone wants things now. Yeah. Whether it's because we're addicted to our phones, or because social media is now, or you're seeing it from everybody else. Right. You have to have a long-term game plan in any business you're gonna be. You're not gonna get your real estate license or go work and next day come home with $10 million. Right? So the relationships are currency. I mean, as salespeople, your relationships are your currency. Yeah. Like if I retired,
I call it social currency. Actually.
Exactly. So that's great. It's social currency, and that's what's worth the most. You know, think about like when you sold your company. You're selling like intellectual property. You're selling relationships. You're selling this brand that it's a thing, yes, but it's so much more than that. So if I retired today, I could sell my database of contacts, my social currency, to another broker who would want that. Yeah. Right. And you have to manage those relationships, and it takes a long time. My biggest deals that I've ever done didn't happen overnight. They've taken 5 years of follow-up. We just signed the biggest building in Brooklyn. That's not built yet. It'll start building this year. It's going to be Brooklyn's first super tall skyscraper, and it's going to change my life, and it'll change my career. And it happened 4 days ago, and that took me 6 years.
That's unbelievable.
And I would see that developer everywhere, and he would just smile and walk away. I pitched him on other buildings, and he hired other people around me. And eventually, I just, out of the blue, I sent him a tree, a massive tree, just with a note that said impact, just to get his attention. And I think he was like, why the fuck did you just send me a tree? Yeah. Right? And then I met him again, and then we sent him a bookshelf. And then every day after that, every day until he hired me, I sent him another book with a note as to why I was the right person. And eventually he just sent me an email that just said, Brooklyn, you win, let's do it, stop sending me books.
Regardless if it's real estate or just anything with entrepreneurship, you gotta drop the ego and realize that like you can only control certain things. Like not everybody's gonna like you, there's gonna be people who doubt you, and a lot of times you're not gonna even have people who wanna help you, but that's okay. You have to take complete control, and what we say at Founders, take complete ownership of your life. Do what's in your control. And you know what, it's not gonna happen overnight, but we're gonna get into Ryan's key lessons that you can take, whether you're just an entrepreneur or if you really wanna become a real estate mogul.
I mean, one of the biggest questions people ask me a lot is, like, how do you get started in real estate? Or how do you get started in sales? Like, that's what you said. Yeah. A lot of people think that real estate's a great thing to do, which it is. It is. It's a great moneymaker, it's a great investment to make, but how do you get started? And, you know, I've kind of developed 6 techniques that I use every single day that I've helped build my career with.
That's like your framework.
Yeah, and I was very nervous to put that out in writing or to tell anybody what those are.
You didn't know if you should be the, nah, I ain't telling you shit.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of think, I can think of Ken looking at me and I'm like, man, maybe he had it right. Why am I putting my whole life out there? Yeah. But that I'm putting that in the book, right? How I structure my entire day and how I built my career from renting apartments for $1,500 a month in Koreatown to today, and how like if I did it, with no connections, not knowing New York City,
Right.
like not having a suit,
Right.
you know, from a brokerage that had no name, then like anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Like, literally anybody can do it. And not just selling real estate, but selling anything. But you have to, like we go into the 3 F's, which I talk about all the time, right? Follow up, follow through, follow back. That's what I lead my life by, right? My 4 favorite words and how I run my team with initiative, empathy. You have to be relentless and you have to have respect. Like take those 4 words, my 4 favorite words in the world, and run your day through that. You follow up with everybody and you will be successful. I've always tried to look at my career as building blocks, kind of the same way you did. Like you started an apartment and then you slowly built and built and built. I think millennials have this idea that they want everything right now.
Yes.
Or they want to work for a company and be catapulted to the top. Or, hey, I want to be your partner. I want to do this. I want to do this. And it's, you haven't earned it.
Yeah.
Like show me like where the earning is. Show me where the scars are.
Yeah.
And so, you know, case in point, this building right here, a real quick backstory, the East Village is right over there.
Right.
Okay, in 2000, today's 2018. In 2014, I got a building called 277 East 7th Street. So we got a building from a small developer there that had been trying to sell it for 6 months with another broker, couldn't sell it at all. None of the units were selling. He was totally nervous. He didn't know what to do. So I pitched him and somehow I got it. I was like, I will do anything. I will sell this building. It was 6 units. It was tiny between Avenue C and D, which is like very, very dangerous. And we got it and we launched it in January 2015 and we did a crazy marketing campaign. We got a ton of people there and we sold the building in 6 months. From there, he was so excited. He said, listen, I'm doing another project in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. I want you to sell that. And I was like, let's do it. Where is Greenpoint, Brooklyn? I've never been there in my life. So we drove out there to this hole in the ground and we're like, okay, I guess we're gonna sell this now. That building then became the Gibraltar at 160 West Street. So he built that and we sold it from my office in Soho and we broke every price record in Greenpoint ever, which wasn't that hard because it wasn't like there was a lot of condos in Greenpoint. And from that, I just pushed it, right? Every time I do something right or I have a success, I scream it from a mountaintop because who cares unless everyone else in the world knows?
Right.
And from that then came a portfolio of buildings with a company called M Development. We got all their buildings in Brooklyn, sold those. From that then came a call to do a building called 868 Lorimer in McCarran Park, that's right in Greenpoint. From that then came the call to do 550 Vanderbilt, which is this building that we're right here. So every building kept getting bigger, bigger, bigger. And from this developer made a call to the developer of the first super tall skyscraper in Brooklyn that we just talked about and told him that if he didn't hire me, that he would be making the biggest mistake of his life. And now I have that. So it started from 6 units in the East Village that no one wanted to sell and no one could sell. And then every single thing, it's just building blocks on top of one another.
Like, do you feel like real estate is entrepreneurial in a sense?
Yeah, because you work for yourself.
Right.
Like I don't have a boss. There's a guy that runs the brokerage company that I work for, but I only ever talk to him when I need something.
Right.
Like he doesn't check what time I get to work. No one is ever going to tell you when you're a salesperson that you've sold too much. You know, like no one's ever going to say, listen, I think you sold too many apartments this year.
Right.
Or they're not going to say, hey, listen, you're doing poorly, because it doesn't cost them anything to have you as part of their workforce unless you're taking up desk space and they want to bring somebody else in.
Right.
So you're accountable only to yourself. And that's the way it was when I was in the city as a non-working unemployed actor. I was accountable to myself.
Right.
Like I could sleep in, but then I'm just letting myself down. Like I could go to a movie or just go hang out on the weekends, but then like, how does that benefit me in any way, shape, or form?
Right.
So when I got into real estate, I was not from New York City. I didn't know anybody. I had no money. I didn't have any connections. I didn't know New York City at all. I'd never even been to Brooklyn in my whole life. And so I made the decision then that the one thing I can control, because I can't control clients, I can't control markets, but I can control how hard I work.
Yeah.
I will not take a day off, and I will outwork everybody. So when they're in the Hamptons or in Aspen or going to the movies or going on dates or doing this, I will be at the office and I will be trying to build my business, and it's gonna be exhausting, but eventually it's gonna pay off, and then everyone's gonna ask me how I did it, and I'm just gonna say, hey, remember that time you went to sleep? I wasn't.
This didn't happen overnight. Ryan talks about patience. The art of the deal took him years to master, and in fact, his biggest deal to date that he just closed 4 days ago Literally took him 6 years. So know that's not gonna happen overnight. Master those traits, master those F's, and then know that real estate's gotta be part of your game plan, but make sure it's a long-term plan. I hope you guys love this episode. Comment below, let me know what you thought of it, and if you want the full episode and our masterclass to understand very specifically how to become a real estate mogul and build a brand and the art of the deal in sales from Ryan himself, then join Founders. I hope to see you on the inside of our platform, Founders, and thank you for watching another episode of LCL. All right, guys, until next time, peace.